Hello everyone, welcome back to the new Python video. In this video we will talk about the lists. So I guess lists are going to be most useful data type for anyone in the data analyst or data engineering field. So let's start. So what are lists? So lists are like collection related data types. So there are some basic data types in Python like string, integer, float, boolean, but then there are different other data types like list, tuple, dictionary, sets. So list is one among those. So when we are going to use the list, we are going to use the list when we have to represent the group of individual objects as a single entity. Suppose there are there are a list of numbers and you just want to represent them as a single entity, then we are going to use the list. So there are some properties of the list. One of them is insertion order is preserved. It means if you create a list and the order in which you will enter the numbers, it is going to be the same no matter how many times you are going to call it, when you are going to call it. So whenever you are going to call the list, its insertion order or the order in which the values are inserted, it's always going to be the same. Second one is duplicates are allowed. It means you can have like a single entity multiple number of times in the list. It's going to be there, it will not just make a single copy of it. And the third property is heterogeneous objects are allowed. So in a list you can have an integer, float, a list of list, all everything. So it's not like in a list you can have just only single type like integer. If you are making a list, it can have integer, float, string, dictionary, everything. And then lists are dynamic. So once you created the list, in after that you can add more values to it, you can remove values from that. So in that sense it is dynamic. Lists are mutable. That means a single entity that you entered in the list, you can change it or you can change the value of it. And the lists have the properties of indexing and slicing operations. So I will go through all of these properties one by one. So first let's say how we can create the list. So if you have to create a blank list, so let's say this L is equal to, it will go with brackets. This way you can create a list. So this is an empty list. So if I do the type of L, it will show me the list. So it is a list. So in this way you can make a list, empty list. If you already know the elements that you want in the list, then you can do it like L is equal to, you suppose 10, 20, 30, 40. So now this is a list. When you know the elements that you want, that's how you can create a list. So let's go through the first property, like insertion order is preserved. So suppose I created a list here 10, 20, 30, 40. Now I will call the list. It will give me the list in the same order. It will not change the position of the elements. So suppose I create a new list now with 40, 50, 60, and I will call the list 1. It will give me the 40, 50, 60 in the same order. So if I call this list like 20 years later, 30 years later, it's always going to be the same until unless Python changes the properties of the lists. Yeah, so this is like insertion order is preserved, this property. Second one is duplicates are allowed. So suppose I created a list like 10, 20, 30, 40, and I will again enter 10 and 20. So it will have the duplicates in it. See, 10, 20, 10, 20. So it will not remove the duplicates, it will always have the duplicates in it. Third property is heterogeneous objects are allowed. That means different data types values can be allowed. That means I can have 10, I can have a float 10.5, I can have a string ABC, I can have one more list inside a list 10, 20, 30. If I call L1 again, so it will not throw me the error just because it has heterogeneous elements. So in the list you can have the heterogeneous elements inside it. Fourth property is it's dynamic. You can increase and decrease the lists. So for that we have to use the sum of the list functions that I'm going to take care later. But you can just see, okay, let me show you one example, like L is equal to 10 comma 20. So there is a property called append in list, in which suppose I want to enter 30. So if I call L, now it has 30 inside it, so it will 10, 20, 30. So there are different properties that you can, different functions that you can use on the list that I will talk about later. But yeah, so this is one of the example that you can add. And let me show you remove. So L dot pop of 10, if I do the L, oops, okay, 0, sorry, pop uses the indexes. So if I use this, it will remove this function, this first value, and it will just give me the 20 and 30. So it's like, it's dynamic. You can increase the values, increase the number of elements in the list, and decrease the number of elements in the list. Fifth, it's mutable. I will go through it after the sixth property, like indexing and slicing. So to access the values of the list, we can use the indexes and slices. Slicing, what do I mean by that? That means there is a list called 10, 20, 30, 40, and I have to access the values of it. So let's first access the values by indexing. Indexing means the position of the elements in a list. So this position is like 0th position, because in Python index starts with 0. So this position is 0, 1, 2, 3. So this is order from left to right. If we go from right to left, the indexing starts with negative. So 40 is -1, 30 is -2, 20 is -3, 10 is -4. Now if I have to access them using the indexes, I will do like, I want to access L of 0. So it will just give me the first value 10. If I wanna access L of 1, it will give me the value 20. So let's use the negative indexing. So if I use print L of, I wanna use -1. So -1 is the end, the nth, last element. So it will give me the 40. So negative indexing starts from right to left. So it will give me the -40. It will give me 40. Suppose I am trying to take L of 5. So let's 0, 1, 2, 3. So 5 is not, like fifth index is not available in the list. So now it will throw me the error because it's index out of range. So using the indexes, if you are using the index that is out of, that's not present in the list, it will throw us the error. So this way you can access the elements of the list using indexing. Now the next method is using slicing. So suppose I wanna access elements L of 0 to 2. So this is slicing. Let's go to our list. So this is 0th element, this is first element, this is second element. So I am accessing 0 to 2. So it will just give me 0 and 1. So last element is not, like it do nth -1. So if you go from left to right and you use slicing, so slicing is like start, end, step. So this is the how you use the slicing. So start is the start index, end is the next, the end index that you want to use, step is the how much you want to leave the gap, or like how many elements you want to miss. And when we use it, so it goes from start to end -1th index. So that's how the slicing works. So let me use print, and by default when you don't use the third step here, it's always 1. So let me create a big list here. L is equal to 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 and 100. and in this I wanna access print L of 0 to 8th, and but I wanna leave 2 in between. So let's see it. 0th, this is first, this is second, this is third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. So this is 8th element. Okay, so we have to get it from here, but we are giving a gap of 2, so we are leaving one element in between. So like after 10 we will leave 30, 50, and then 70, and another element is not available, so that's why it will not take the 90th. So this is how you can use the slicing, but we can also use slicing using the negative, like back indexing. So suppose I wanna take from a 9th to first minus 2. So it will, so because we are going from 9th to first, so let's say what's the 9th. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this is the 9th. From here we are going to 20th, and we are taking, so we are going from right to left, so that's why it will take minus 2, and that means it will take 100, and then it will take 80, 60, 40. It will not take the 20 because that is the last element. So that's how we can use the slicing operator on it. And before that there was one more thing called mutable. That means in the list we can change the element value. That means the individual elements are mutable. So suppose in the lists I wanna change the 0th value. Instead of 10 I want it like 50. So if I do print of L now it is changed to 50. That means you can change the values of the elements. That means they are mutable, they are not fixed. That's all the properties of the lists. In the next video I will try to talk about more functions that we can use on the lists, different, like how to use for loop on it, if else, all those things. So I guess this video was helpful. Take care. I will see you next time. Bye.